Okay. So we are now recording. Thank you so much, Sue, for being with me today. Now, I know that you're an mBIT coach. You're also an author, a master NLP practitioner, I believe, and you do hypnosis. Your site obviously is SueLester.com, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Thanks, Beth, for the opportunity to be here, and hi everyone who's listening. I'm based in Redcliffe, which is just north of Brisbane in Australia by the sea, so I get to walk along the beach in the morning, which is a fabulous way to set myself up for the day.
Yeah.
So I basically clear head trash.
Okay. So, yeah, mindset and clarity. Absolutely.
So I work with individuals, teams, and audiences across the world. Creating lasting behavioural change through mindset shifts and unconscious blueprint optimization, which is, all of that, as I call, clearing head trash. Yeah. Okay. I've also got a passion for adventurous travel. So I love exploring the world, not just virtually like this, but actually physically.
Yeah.
And I studied mBIT. I just had a look, coming up 3 years ago now, or just over 3 years ago. Okay. And then last year started studying the mBraining energetics process.
Right. So, which is where I know you from, which is the energetics classes. Yeah. So when you look at before mBraining, before the mBIT 3 years ago, you were doing hypnosis, you're doing NLP. You were already an author at that stage, or did you become an author after mBraining?
Before.
Before. Okay.
Yes.
So how did mBraining change your personal life and your practice?
Actually, I was just thinking, I heard Marvin Oka talk about it while I was actually writing my first book, but I didn't actually study it until, like I said, afterwards. It explained a lot. It made so much sense. Because when I look back, I realized that in all the traveling I'd done, my heart and gut had grabbed my passport and run away before my head had really noticed what was happening.
Yeah.
And it also explained why I had a massive crash and burn in terms of my business and personal life, because I had been following a head-based model, like I was modeling someone else's version of success, which really didn't resonate with my heart and my gut. And so when we had the family, a couple of years of death, 5 deaths in less than 2 years, my heart just took a, screaming dive. I didn't have the resilience. And I sort of lost gut connection, my identity, because I, couldn't follow, I realized I couldn't follow that model anymore. So who was I?
Right.
So studying the mBIT really made a difference to me personally. Plus, as always, I'm always looking for, lifelong learning, always looking for different modalities and different ways to help my clients.
Yeah. So what changed for you, like on a date? I mean, has it changed how you approach life on a day-to-day basis, apart from, the bigger decisions? Is there things you do differently in your daily routine because of mBraining?
I think I'm more in tune, more connected. It's that sense of connection. So when I feel disconnected, when, that bright, shiny object appears, as I do, I'm better at checking in whether it's just the head saying, oh, you'll miss out if you don't.
Don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. So better at checking in, making sure it's actually in alignment, matches my values, matches my identity for myself, but also my business identity. And that was certainly missing in the early days when I started my business 12 years or so ago. And that's why I think why it was such a struggle. It was fun. I could do everything, but it wasn't a good match with who I am inside. So then it wasn't sustainable. So yes, it's a rediscovery of identity, basically came down to it. And it's also helping because I understand that I'd lost that connection with my identity. And it showed up in my personal life in that I've always done, ever since I was little, tiny, I wanted to travel the world. And so I did. not realizing that there were blocks and things that I shouldn't have been able to do what I did without, with the level of money I had. But anyway.
Yeah.
And then I'd always thought of myself and lived my life as an adventurer. And then I started having people say, I'd mentioned something in passing about, I don't know, being charged by a gorilla, trekking in Nepal, whatever. And I started having people say, really? You? Wow, I would never have thought you don't look like someone who'd do that. And, that was like stabbing the heart.
Right.
And, I'm sort of, well, where's my identity? I am that person. Really, I am.
Yeah.
And that was a motivation for starting to write my second book, which is answering the call to adventure.
Right.
Which, bringing forward some of mine, can't fit them all into one volume. That's a bit serious, I think. But, talking about that, and I'm also bringing that identity, that gut identity, into my speaking, my presentation. So I'm now permitting myself to use an adventure travel story as a framework to get my message across around, the mindset and identity and purpose, which are my three key things.
Yeah.
Whereas before I studied mBIT, I kept that very separate from my work life.
Right. So you compartmentalize that this is my personal life and this is my professional life, and and never the twain shall meet.
Yeah, exactly. And I had a coach that said, yes, that's your point of difference. Bring it in. That's that's separate. It's head, my business is in my head, and that was very much my heart and gut. Actually, my heart was sort of in the middle. So there was business, personal life, and the heart in the middle, trying to pull the two together, I think.
Yeah.
Was how it worked. So in terms of studying the mBIT, it brought that together. So now I've got a business model that's more congruent, it aligns. And on a day-to-day basis, if I don't feel in alignment, I can check in and see, who's missing out, who's trying to take over. And then it's easier to make adjustments.
Yeah.
That's making sense.
Absolutely makes sense. Yeah. So you talked about your first book. Now I've just heard you mention your second book. Is that already published and out, or is that coming?
It was published years ago, but no, actually it's not finished yet. And I was reflecting, I listened to your interview with Bill.
Yeah.
Because he was my mBIT trainer, my first certification. And I realized what was disconnecting there, because with my first book, my mother had a terminal illness and she ended up dying before it was published. So there was lots of stuff tied up there. And with this one, I'd already realized a block that I needed to work through was that, well, my mum died with her first book. Well, my dad died with my second book. So I did some work around that.
Right.
But it's more, I'm actually, when I'm reliving the stories, I'm reconnecting with who I was then, and there's a shift in identity, but it's my heart that's actually blocking it at the moment. So, and I only realized that listening to the interview yesterday. It's like, okay, so that's, yes. So there's some work to do there to get more into it, because my head's saying, great, it's perfect business. People are asking for it. They've been asking for it for a few years now. Get it out there, and that will promote my first book, The Face Within, How to Change.
Yes.
It's all there.
Yeah.
There's so many head-based reasons to do it.
Yeah.
And my gut's saying, yes, that's your identity. That's who you are. It's time to, step up and be yourself.
And your heart's going, I'm not ready yet.
Yeah, it's scary. It's very vulnerable to say, especially some of the stories. And there'll be things in there that I didn't put in my letters to home that Dad will go, oh, and he might have a little, I did some crazy things all over the world with different people. And yes.
But at the same time, that is the authentic, true you.
Yes, exactly. So in my diary for this afternoon, I've blocked out some time to have a little chat with my heart and my head and my gut, and just,
figure out that alignment.
Yeah, exactly. Because even though you know the stuff,
it's not the same.
Yeah, well, you need an outside perspective sometimes to point it out that, oh, okay, that's what's going on. Is that what's going on?
Yeah.
So I have to thank Bill.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Bill. Yeah. And I know even as a coach, sometimes, I'm lucky after energetics, which you and I studied together, I I've kept up my triads with Sarah and Wendy, and we still meet every single week. So
Oh,
every
okay.
week I'm still getting coached by the two of them and coaching them.
Yeah.
Um, and I found, oh, sorry about that. I found that all of those things, those blocks that keep coming up, they change all the time, because as you peel back one layer, there's something else below it. Um, and getting coached on a weekly basis of where's your alignment, what's the evolving wisdom of this week, what is emerging for you as
Mm.
you're working on this project and you find your stuckness again. Okay, well, let's work through that one and what comes up for you now. And sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's like, huh, who am I becoming, and
Yes.
who am I to dare to think that I could become that.
Mm.
And
Oh, then.
I mean, there's all sorts of things that come up, but as you work through it, my heart's saying, yes, I want this, and sometimes my gut's going, well, wait a minute, hold on. And sometimes
Mm.
it's just the head, sometimes it's just my head playing games with me, of that inner critic that says, nah, that's never going to work, that's not going to work.
Yeah. And that coaching is invaluable. I'm still connected with Jane. So
Yeah,
we catch up monthly, and I do peer coaching with someone else. So,
excellent.
fortnightly, I
Yeah,
get an outside perspective, someone who's skilled that can point out things, reflect back.
exactly.
Yeah, it's invaluable. I mean, I can't imagine not having a coach in my life. I mean, they're not the only ones, but,
Yeah,
it's just crazy not to.
yeah. And so,
Mm.
when you're talking about, just having that inner conversation with our hearts, and so many times we fail to do that. We sit there going, oh, I'm not doing this, but we're not going back inwards and finding where's that center, where's that alignment. And I think that's the beautiful thing about the mBraining, is it takes us to that place. One of the things that we've been talking about throughout these interviews is chapter 9, which chapter
Mm.
9 is all about how are you now expressing your creativity, your courage, your compassion out into the world, um, as part of just the way you're living life now. And obviously, I realize part of that is getting your next book out. Um,
Big
Part of
part.
that, I believe, is energetics for you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Um,
energy was huge. That was a real. I've been looking for something for myself because I'd noticed that I had put on weight over the years because, with all of the emotional
yes,
issues around death and just being a businesswoman, all the pressures and living in a more masculine world. And it had been creeping on. And it got to the point where I actually wasn't feeling particularly authentic when I stood up to present.
right.
Because, stand up as a mindset coach, well, I need to look like I've got my stuff together.
Yeah,
And to me, a successful person is successful in body as well as,
in
it's the
mind,
whole
exactly.
thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So when I came across the mBraining energetics, it was, that's the missing piece. Because for those who aren't aware of it, Shelley Billingmeyer in the States has been developing the energetics process for over 25 years
yeah,
intuitively. And
yeah.
when she linked up with Grant and he could provide the scientific basis for everything that she'd done, it was just a perfect match.
Yes,
And for
yeah.
me, it was like a missing link because I'm not into diets and I don't want
No,
restrictions and all that other horrible stuff. So learning a process that allows me to connect in with my gut wisdom,
yeah,
and in doing so, better connect with the heart and head, which is the mBIT, and just learn how to listen. And so I only eat when I'm hungry for food, and I find ways, or I use, mBIT and all my other techniques and modalities to deal with the other issues that come up, or the other reasons for when we consume food or drink when we're not actually needing it for nutritional reasons.
right. Yeah,
So that's liberating physically, emotionally and mentally. And I love sharing it with my clients because it makes such a difference for them as well.
Absolutely.
Huge. So there's that element. My work, particularly the one-on-one mindset coaching I do, to me, that's my legacy.
Yes.
Because I know when I'm working with one person, not just working with her or him, I'm also working with the children, the spouses, the colleagues, their teams, the neighbours, you know, it's that ripple on out and down generations.
Yeah.
You know, because how you shift how you're parenting has enormous impact on your child and how your child will parent in the future and their children, you know, and you can break cycles, generational cycles.
And I know for me with Isabella, she's 5, so most of my eating, or her eating, should I say, is this whole basis of, are you hungry? And when she says she's had enough, that's it. You know, I don't have this idea of you have to finish what's on your plate. If I feel like she hasn't had enough, I will say, well, let's just put a lid on it, and when you're hungry, you can come back to it. Especially because she might say, I'm not hungry anymore, because what she really wants is ice cream from the fridge. And understanding that, exactly. Understanding that, I'm like, yeah, okay, let's put a lid on this. But I'm also the mom that, would you like an ice cream milkshake for breakfast? And I will add in there the other things that I want you to have. And sure, you can have an ice cream shake for breakfast. Of course you can. I've added in everything else I wanted you to have in the shake. But it's that understanding that I don't want her to have food as an enemy or food as a replacement for affection. And I can remember specifically one night where she said to me, Mommy, I want some ice cream. And it was like 8 o'clock. And I was like, ice cream? And I was like, well, did you want a sandwich? Are you hungry? No. Would you like some water? Are you thirsty? No. Do you need a hug? Yes. And she literally sat in my lap and fell asleep in my arms.
Yeah. So she wanted the comfort, the sweetness.
Exactly, the sweetness of food. And so it's that recognition and realization of there are hungers.
Absolutely. So many hungers.
There's yeah.
And once you're aware of those hungers, and that there are so many other senses that you can get pleasure from, that can, you know, satisfy those hungers without resorting to food or drink. Because and one thing I learned too, you know, I love baked cheesecake, just love it. But I've learned, and it's that awareness that yes, the first couple of mouthfuls are absolutely divine, but if I eat more than that, the pleasure goes.
Yes.
Because then I get full and I feel uncomfortable and I feel a bit guilty about it. So when we overeat, when you overdo a good thing, we actually, you know, go over the top and lose the pleasure, which is what's
gone back to having a teaspoon of ice cream straight out of the freezer and not feeling the need to serve myself a plate. Because all I really wanted was the teaspoon of ice cream. And it's like, I don't want a plate of ice cream. I just want that tiny little taste of it.
And that's enough.
And so that's enough. So we're taught of, well, you know, serve yourself. I mean, and serving sizes have gotten so large.
Oh, ridiculous. And even plates are bigger than they used to be as well. Just everything's bigger. Upsizing,
absolutely. So, you know, just learning those little things of, you know, like you said, that taste in your mouth is so delicious for 3, maybe 4 bites. And so now I literally, the serving size is that 3 to 4 bites, not the whole, you know, not the whole lot.
Just suck every little bit of pleasure out of it. And that's the other thing, if you're not focusing on what you're eating, the whole, you know, so I was just thinking, I'd rather have one deliciously handmade, beautifully crafted, exquisite chocolate than a whole
absolutely
stuff that you just shove in while you're eating, you know, watching TV
or while you're driving the car, exactly, and your mind's actually eating.
No pleasure, it's just shoving it down.
Yeah.
Which causes more problems than it solves anyway. So it's a real eye-opener studying that energetics process and combining that with the work I'm doing with clients. But the original thing, like I said, was for myself. And so very happy with the results for that.
Absolutely. So moving forward in chapter 90, when could we think of seeing a book from you?
I've actually stopped putting
dates
marks in the sand.
All right.
Because I have in the past, and it's someone else is putting it in. I've realized in the last couple of weeks, this is actually a personal development course I'm doing, writing this book, because it's you know, the first book had case studies and it was work, and you know, so that flowed really easily. But this one there's a lot of personal stuff. It's going back, reading diaries, reading letters that I read to people.
Oh, yeah.
So apart from just going down that fabulous wormhole of travel, it's also processing things that I experienced at the time that I just shoved down.
Right.
And now they're coming up. So I decided to honor that.
That's
and this
beautiful.
is a decision I only made earlier in the week. I'm going to honor that. I'm going to process it rather than just scribble off something, because I could. I mean, there's parts of my diary that could be published just as is.
Right.
But rather than do that, I'm actually going to process and clear my own head trash.
Yeah, exactly.
As I go. And then I guess the words that come to mind, I'll be free.
Yes.
Free to clear it.
Oh.
And I think that will keep my heart happy.
Yeah.
You know,
because
that's what my
I'm
heart
sure
wants.
that it's not just clearing your head trash. I'm sure that as you go through that, there will be things that come up with your heart. There'll be things that come up with your gut as well. And it's not just all in your head, you know.
And that head trash term I started before I actually did the mBIT. So really it's brain trash, as in head, heart and gut.
Absolutely, yeah.
But people tend to understand head trash more easily than going into then having to explain that we've got 3 brains and all the rest can come later. But, you know, if you say you've got head trash or someone, you know, most people say, oh, yeah, God, I've got some of that. Need your help. I have met people who went, really? Don't understand even that concept of head trash. So it's like, well, they're not ready for my work.
No, exactly.
You need some level of self-awareness.
Absolutely. So moving forward,
in terms of the bigger picture, so absolutely the book, continuing to talk about it in my presentations, as in introducing concepts, reflecting on it in that, my one-on-one workshops. Also, when I go back I do voluntary work in a school and orphanage in Nakuru, Kenya, nakuruhope.org.au. So there's concepts there. I've been thinking about how I could introduce those to the children in a way that they understand, because being able to connect to their head, heart and gut.
I think you'll find that kids understand it better than adults do.
There's the language thing, because English isn't their first language.
Oh, okay, right.
So, but the older ones, absolutely. And the ones that have been in the orphanage for a while now, their language has certainly improved. Connecting with that, because it's all about your personal power, because if you're connected, then it's much easier to stand firm against pressures from outside. And I mean, some of these kids have had just dreadful, traumatic backgrounds. So I think that's going to work in well there.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to get in touch with you and follow you, where would they find you? Where's the best place to get in touch with you?
If they want to speak to me directly, on my website, suelester.com, there's a little link that you can book in 15 minutes complimentary session. And I do it via Zoom, so that's worldwide.
Yeah.
Just negotiate the time zones.
Yeah.
I'm on Facebook, so personally, and Growing Content, Smoothing Your Path is my business page. LinkedIn, I'm just Sue Lester. So for anyone, but please say where you've heard of me. So, because if you're on a different part of the planet, it's always nice to know where you've come from, as opposed to being some scammer.
Just random contact of, I'd like to contact Sue Lester. Yeah. Okay.
I've got $50 billion that I want to give to you.
Right. So just final thoughts on mBraining and coaching with mBraining, what you'd want somebody to know before they contact you, or just about mindset work.
It's being an openness, understanding that you can change who you are. You're not stuck who you are. You can, the past you can leave behind, you can learn new skills, you can, what I talk about as, there's you inside, and then there's all the labels and the muck that's being splattered on you. And it's about clearing all that away so, you can shine. Because to my mind, your purpose in life is simply to be the very best you possible.
Absolutely.
And so mBIT and mindset work and NLP and all those other modalities, energetics, are all about helping you be the very best you possible.
The most authentic, the most real. Exactly. Yeah. Not a copy of somebody else. Yeah.
Not a copy of someone else, without other people's labels, without the trauma and pain from the past. Just free to be you and, bring your natural gifts and talents to the world and be comfortable sharing them. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be world domination. You don't have to be a multi-millionaire. It's just being you. So when you die on your deathbed, you feel content that you lived your life the best that you could.
Yeah.
No regrets.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Well, thank you, Sue, so much for this, taking this time to interview with me. And thank you all for listening today. And I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit more about mBraining, and especially about Sue and her worldwide travels and her speaking and authoring, and obviously her mBraining coaching. So thank you so much, Sue, for being with me today. And I'll catch up with you again soon.
Look forward to it, Beth. Okay.
All right.